Hear ye, welcome all to the Dorky Daddy State of the Union address. Final Cut Pro 11 just released, DaVinci Resolve 19.1 just released. We need to talk editing.
Wait, sir, wait, what about Premiere, sir?
Have you been to this body of government before? We don't talk about that shit. My dorky daddies,
How y'all doing?
I keep saying this, I'm gonna say it again, but holy cow, this month is a fantastic month for Dorky Dad Jake. It's a fantastic month for DaVinci Resolve users. It's a fantastic month for Final Cut Pro users. And to be completely honest with you guys, that's like all I've been thinking about is just editing and Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve. I can't get it out of my brainwaves. And I wanted to just make another video going through and trying to talk through what would I recommend with the release of Final Cut Pro 11? Because I can't remember exactly what I said, but I know in past videos I have definitely said, do not touch Final Cut. If you're brand new to editing, just touch DaVinci Resolve. Like, it kind of hurts me to say it, but it's the truth. Final Cut just feels like it's getting left for dead. DaVinci Resolve has a free version, like use DaVinci Resolve. But with this new release of Final Cut Pro 11, I do think the waters have been muddied quite a bit. So today, late November 2024, I want to talk about Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve with the new Final Cut Pro 11 release and kind of give my thoughts on what I think people should be using to the best of my limited knowledge. So again, let's revisit the variables. Let's make sure we're all on the same page here. I am a mostly social media editor. I do various odd jobs here and there. I've dialed that back down a lot lately, but I edit mostly for my channel and other YouTubers on internet content creation type stuff. So that is where I'm coming from an expertise standpoint as far as what I edit. So obviously I'm talking to a lot of other fellow internet editors. And then on top of that, again, just a reminder, not that long ago, I have been on record for saying I don't think you should use Final Cut Pro as a newbie unless you know you want to use it for something specific. At the time, Resolve was pumping out features just as fast as they have been, and Final Cut just had nothing. And again, with this Final Cut Pro 11 release, I think that has changed. And before we really start to split hairs, I do want to just kind of like say something that I know is going to drive people crazy, which is that like, if you are an editor and you're kind of wanting to, like, if you're curious about DaVinci and Final Cut, first of all, both of them have a free version. Now, Final Cut's is only a trial, and it's still 90 days. It's a 3-month trial. It's a very extensive trial that you can do it for free, but it isn't an indefinite trial, whereas DaVinci Resolve has a free version. But the funny thing is there's kind of pros and cons there. Maybe we'll get into that in just a second. But the point is I really think there's an argument in 2024 to save up money and potentially learn and use both softwares. I could just like hear the keyboards like in the like already, and like even my friends who usually pick one or the other are gonna flame me for this, but like, and I know I'm coming from a position of someone who loves both and spends a lot of time with it. Like, I get it. It's kind of a stupid take, but I don't think it is. And I just want to say, like, if you're doing a lot of video editing, DaVinci Resolve went on sale recently, but it's roughly around $300. Final Cut Pro, same story. Doesn't usually go on sale, but it's around $300. As you guys know, I'm not a big Adobe fan on this channel. We're not going to talk about Premiere Pro today, which maybe will make some people angry, but both of those costs are lifetime acquisitions of the software, which is truly incredible. You could easily pay double that in just a few years if you stick with like the Adobe platform. So I know that it's a lot of upfront cost and a lot of learning, but start with the free trial of Final Cut, start with the free version of DaVinci Resolve. I just think that like, if you are taking editing seriously, the combination of these two tools is deadly. And that's what I want to get into today, is what are some of the things that each of these tools are really good at. And the truth is if you're just editing videos for the internet, either of them will work perfectly. No one wants to tell you that, but both of them will work. People are using Final Cut Pro at the biggest levels of YouTube. People are using DaVinci Resolve at the biggest levels of YouTube. The fact is that they both work. Okay, Jake, but shut up. We don't want to use both. Like, give us your thoughts. Why would you pick one over the other? What are some of the things? As the resident Final Cut Pro DaVinci Resolve lover and expert, what would you recommend as an editor for the internet? Generally speaking, right now, the debate between Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve has come down to really one main sentence: features versus speed. DaVinci Resolve being the tool with lots of features, and Final Cut Pro being the tool that is very fast. Now, the reason it gets muddy is because depending on what you are doing, if you don't have the tools, it's either going to be very slow because Final Cut can't do some of these complex things quickly, or you won't be able to do them at all. And if you have DaVinci Resolve, you will be able to do them. What are some of these things? In DaVinci Resolve, this would be advanced motion graphics, keyframe editing that looks very professional, audio processing that is insanely professional, voice isolation that is top shelf professional, audio mixing for both music and just voice is effortless in DaVinci Resolve. And I would even say like performance and render formats and all of the different ways you can export, like Resolve just has buckets of tools for these types of things that Final Cut doesn't. And historically speaking, this also included Magic Mask and auto captions, which it still kind of is the case. We'll talk about that in a second, because that's where it's starting to get even trickier. Final Cut, on the other hand, lacks a lot of these tools, and if you spend a lot of additional money on plugins, you can get most of these things that DaVinci Resolve has that Final Cut is lacking. It's possible a lot of people do it again. The biggest creators are using Final Cut just like they're using Resolve. They make it work, and generally speaking, like myself, there's probably a plethora of plugins that they depend on for motion graphic work, and probably Magnetic Mask before Final Cut Pro 11. But again, whether or not you agree with it, and my guess is that if you disagree with it, you haven't used both softwares. Final Cut Pro is faster. I've made videos about it. If you're curious about that, go watch those videos. We're not going to argue that today. There's so many things in Final Cut Pro from a cutting and storytelling perspective that are just objectively faster. I feel like I'm saying a lot, and I'm very passionate about this subject, so let's do some examples. Let's really try to narrow in on, Jake, what would you do for these different video styles with these different pieces of software if you had to pick one today? Let's start with just a classic YouTube video. Say I'm just making a dorky dad YouTube video. This does vary heavily. Again, I go back and forth, and I personally take a lot of pride in using both because I try to keep my skills up in both. But right now, with Final Cut Pro 11, with Magnetic Mask being a possibility, I'm using Final Cut for all of my YouTube editing. I love editing on one screen. I love how easy it is to do L&J cuts for talking heads type stuff, which is just a lot more painful in DaVinci Resolve. For a long-form YouTube video, I really like using Final Cut. And because of the magnetic timeline, I do love Final Cut for story-driven long-form YouTube content. It's just so easy to move things around and really test different flows throughout the story. It's top shelf. I love long-form YouTube editing with Final Cut Pro. It's just my pick for that. So now what about short form content? Let's say I wanted to make a vertical video. This one is kind of tricky. Again, I use both. I think right now I'd probably recommend DaVinci Resolve though, just because the auto captions are light years better than even the new auto caption feature that just came out in Final Cut Pro 11. And just the audio mixing and the rendering and the graphics that you can do with Fusion. I love doing vertical video with DaVinci Resolve. And again, I feel like I need to keep saying it. I've made a ton of vertical content in Final Cut Pro. You can do it, but if I had to pick right now without having to round trip to try to get auto captions from DaVinci Resolve, I do like to use DaVinci Resolve. So here's another one, and again, I haven't done too much of this, but kind of the general style is more of a documentary type style. Really long clips of people talking, and you were there, or you just need to know certain snippets of where they were talking. You're not just letting the whole thing roll from start to finish. You're really trying to get those highlights. DaVinci Resolve is my go-to for that. And the reason being is that DaVinci has the ability to transcribe all of the clips in your media pool and then read the text in a kind of text-like document. You can set in and out points. You can pull out clips from that text. You can search that text, which is so good. It's so freaking good. Anything of this like documentary or like crazy long-form genre, I'm going with DaVinci Resolve because just being able to read what people are saying saves you so much time. You don't have to listen to everything. And again, for anything kind of sit down or pulling clips from sit down content, maybe this is vertical clips from like a podcast, this feature can save you hours of time. Hours of time. I don't really know what category this next one would fall into, but I kind of just want to like say a little something about Final Cut Pro 11 and the new magnetic mask feature. I've made videos about this. I'll probably make more videos about this, but the magnetic mask feature in Final Cut Pro 11 is absolutely bananas. It's so damn easy to use, and it's so fast, and it's really high quality. It's like the perfect unicorn of anything you'd want from a software tool. So if for some reason you're making a lot of content where you need to cut out people or things and you're doing kind of fun, dorky, silly graphics, again, this is something I'm kind of familiar with. Final Cut Pro after version 11 is really enticing because you could do this in DaVinci Resolve, but Magic Mask is way more of a pain to use, and I've just found the performance to be much worse. So it's something to think about because it's so good in Final Cut Pro 11 that I honestly was expecting to kind of be like, oh yeah, cool, now it has it like DaVinci Resolve. And it's like, no, it's that much better. If you really like that feature or need that feature, I would heavily consider Final Cut Pro. Whew. My dorky daddies, I have been all over the place with this video, and that's because I think if we're going to summarize, I think I'm struggling with what to recommend for people to use in 2024 November, which is just crazy. I was so headstrong, hell-bent on saying if you're new and you don't have any attachments to Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro, like learn DaVinci Resolve, save yourself a truckload of money, and it's just absolutely going to be the way to go. And I just don't know that I agree with that, which again is so crazy because I would have bet a lot of money that this is not how I would have felt this year, maybe ever, about Final Cut Pro. It's really cool to see, which is maybe the way to wrap this up. Like Final Cut Pro 11 has me really excited. DaVinci Resolve 19, 19.1 have me really excited. It's a great time to be into software. Try both of the free versions of these applications and see which one works for you. Now, I kind of teased it at the beginning of this video, but I think it's important to mention, when you do the free trial of Final Cut Pro, you are getting Final Cut Pro. Like, it's not a light version. There's not anything held back. When you try the free version of DaVinci, you're not getting a trial version of the studio version. You're getting the free version of DaVinci, which, again, definitely is leaving some features out. Now, for most people, that doesn't really matter, but it is something to consider. In order to really know the difference, and especially the performance differences in the Pro and the Studio version, you kind of need to pay the top dollar to try it in DaVinci, whereas you can literally try the top dollar full nacho big bad boy Final Cut for free for 3 months, which is kind of something I hadn't really thought about, but I do think, especially with how convincing Final Cut Pro is looking with this new version release, I would just say I would really recommend to try both and see which one you like, see which one resonates with you, and really, more than anything, like, take the information I told you about today, the kinds of videos I like making, the features that have got me sort of really interested in Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve, and start with the one that sounded the most interesting to you and go from there. I know it's a crappy answer, but as someone who just loves this stuff, I think it's important to take the time to learn your tools and learn your craft and, find the one that works for you. So now for the $1 million, like, I'm sure everyone's dying. I don't know. Does anyone care? What do I use? Jake, what are you using? I'll be completely honest. The past few weeks, I have been editing pretty much everything in Final Cut Pro. This magnetic mask feature has got my brain spinning with just fun ideas. And I've really been enjoying editing on one single laptop screen, which Final Cut is amazing at. And DaVinci Resolve is not my favorite at editing on one screen. But does that mean I won't use DaVinci Resolve? Of course not. Of course not. I use both. And I mean, I'll keep you guys posted, but I can't really imagine a world where I completely get off of one for the other, because it's my hobby. It's my love. It's what I love to do. I'm a big, fat, freaking dorky nerd who loves video editing and not spending a subscription cost. So therefore, I just love Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve. If you guys like what we're doing here on the channel, consider becoming a member. I'm going to get back to editing, and I will see you in the next one. Later, guys. Stay dorky.